Very good evening and hello to the viewers. Today we are here, as many of you would be knowing. Today is a world beginning of the World Continents Week from June 21st to 27th. Generally, it is celebrated this year. It is being celebrated. The week is being celebrated between these days. The reason for having this conversation today is not just to commemorate the World Continents Week, uh, but it's a health campaign basically to raise awareness of incontinence-related issues. This year, it is taking place between 21st and 27th of June. During this week, the impact urinary incontinence can, what impact it can have on your life will be highlighted, and sorry, and encouraging those living with it. We will encourage those who are having this problem to seek help so they do not suffer in silence. So during this webinar, we also would request you to come forward. If you have any queries, you can put your queries. We have a very eminent panel of doctors with us today. All of them are very established and well-known urologists based out of Kolkata. So before I start the session, let me first introduce you to the panel of doctors. We have Dr. Nilanjan Mitra, who is a consultant urologist. We have Dr. Navankur Ghosh, who also is a consultant urologist. We have Dr. Shayak Roy, another consultant urologist. Dr. Mukesh Kumar Vijay, another urologist, and Dr. Pushpa Sham Chaudhary, who is also a consultant urologist and a professor. So without losing much time, let me get into the subject first. So first, if I can start with Dr. Mitra. Dr. Mitra, first I would like to know from you, if you can tell us what is urinary incontinence?
Thanks, Mr. Bob Roy. Thanks to MSN and to Times of India for giving us opportunity to make this awareness campaign. So our topic is today urinary incontinence. Urinary incontinence in colloquial terms is inability to control the release of urine from the bladder. It affects nearly 1 in 10 persons above 60 years of age. Basically, urinary incontinence is the severe urge to void unless it is this is a severe urge, and if you can't go to the toilet, you will do it in the undergarments. This is the urinary incontinence. It can range from mild occasional leakage to chronic uncontrolled urination. It may not be a disease alone. It can be a symptom that may suggest any other severe illness. I think the most common causes of chronic incontinence are overactive bladder muscles, weakened pelvic floor muscles. Some persons, some males will be having enlarged prostate. There may be tuberculosis. There may be some tumors in the bladder, and there may be infection, chronic UTI. There may be interstitial cystitis. All these may lead to urinary incontinence.
So Dr. Mitra explained us the basic definition of what urinary incontinence is. I'll go to Dr. Roy now. If Dr. Roy can expand a bit and tell us who generally gets urinary incontinence, who are susceptible to a disorder like this.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bob Roy. I would also like to thank Times of India and MSN for organizing this webinar regarding urinary incontinence, which is a very pertinent problem in our day-to-day urological practice nowadays. A lot of patients come to us urologists with this problem and seek appropriate solutions. So the question is, who are commonly affected with urinary incontinence? It has been seen that urinary incontinence can occur at any age and any sex, be it male or female. But commonly it has been seen overall that females are more affected than males, with a ratio of around 1.5 to 2:1. And among females, it can happen in young females as well as in older females. But it has been seen that post-reproductive age group females are more affected with urinary incontinence because of certain events like pregnancy, childbirth. Especially post-menopausal females have been seen to be more affected. And it can also happen in males who have prostatic enlargement and chronic bladder outlet obstruction. It can also occur in patients who are chronically affected with diabetes and other neurological disorders.
I see. Dr. Ghosh, I'll come to you next. What actually causes urinary incontinence? What is the physiological reason, or what happens inside an organ which leads to a situation like this?
To understand why incontinence occurs, first we have to understand what is the basic physiology behind the urine production, the storage, and the excretion. As we know, we have two kidneys which produces urine, and this urine gets stored inside the bladder, urinary bladder, and when there is appropriate time, we evacuate bladder. That urine passes through a small tube called urethra and goes outside. And this is the basic process. Now, there are certain mechanisms in our body which prevents this inappropriate or involuntary passage of urine, which may be cumbersome to the patient. So one mechanism is that our urethra, that's surrounding our urine pipe, the urethra, there is a group of muscles which acts just as a valve. So we can control it. So whenever we want, we can squeeze the muscle and stop that, we pinch up the urethra and prevent the urine from leaking. So whenever we want, we just relax this muscle, relax this sphincter, we open up this valve, and the urine will pass down. Another mechanism is that our bladder has a capacity to store a large amount of urine without increasing the pressure within the bladder. So there are some inherent mechanisms in the wall of the bladder which leads to these factors. So if there is any disturbance in this inherent mechanism in the wall of the bladder, which leads to an increased pressure in the bladder when the urine gets stored, or if there is a weakness of these sphincter muscles, which prevents the urine from leaking out, that may lead to incontinence. So depending on the type of incontinence, we basically divide the incontinence in various groups. For example, stress incontinence, the urine gets leaked out when there is increased pressure inside our tummy. For example, when coughing, sneezing, or any cause like weightlifting, etc. So in this case, the sphincter is weak. So it is unable to hold the increased pressure inside the bladder when there is increased pressure inside the abdomen, because that abdomen pressure will press upon the bladder and try to push the urine outside. So these weak muscles, they are unable to hold that urine. The other group is the overactive bladder, where the muscles, there's some problems in the muscles of the bladder, so that it is unable to hold the urine for a long time. So whenever there is small amount of urine get collected, it empties itself by contraction. So these are the basic two mechanisms by which pathophysiology behind the incontinence.
Thank you, Dr. Ghosh. Dr. Chaudhary, what are the common symptoms? I mean, what are the symptoms if somebody has incontinence problem or is going to have? So what are the symptoms one should be looking out for?
Incontinence is a very common problem which is often hidden by the patients or considered as a taboo or a stigma where they don't come out with their problems. So it's very commonly seen in elderly females, and the symptoms are wetting of the undergarments on a slight increase in the abdominal pressure. It might be due to sneezing, maybe coughing, or even change of position. even in young adults who have a weak sphincter, as Dr. Namankur had explained, and they might not be able to hold urine for a long time, or when they feel the urge, a normal person can hold urine up to maybe 400, 500 ml of urine in the bladder, and then they feel the urge to pass urine. But people who have a weak sphincter or a weak valve rather, they tend to leak before that amount of urine is reached. So with a small volume, maybe around 100 ml or 200 ml, they tend to leak urine. So what happens is they feel a sudden urgency, or there is a sudden involuntary contraction. The bladder is actually supposed to contract when it has reached its limit, and they have a proper place to evacuate. But sometimes in an inappropriate place, there is a sudden contraction of the bladder, and the valve doesn't coordinate with that. The valve is supposed to hold the urine so long we don't get an appropriate place to let out. But sometimes what happens in a public place, or when they don't want to void, there is a sudden leak because of the inappropriate coordination between the bladder muscles and the sphincters. So there might be urgency, that is, they might feel like an inability to hold urine. They might have to rush to the toilet. Before going to the toilet, they might leak some urine. They might have to wake multiple times at night. There might be nocturnal incontinence. That means they leak in the bed, or before going to the toilet, they leak during the night hours. So these are some of the symptoms which happen with incontinence.
Dr. Vijay, if I can come to you, we have come to know about certain reasons by which which leads to this incontinence problem, like pregnancy, childbirth, menopause. These are some of the problems which women get affected with. Apart from this, what are the other reasons which might lead to a problem like this?
Dr. Nabakur is clearly explained about the mechanism of the incontinence. Here are the different causes of urinary incontinence. That is different in the females, different in the males, and in overall what type of the incontinence. So first, the general causes we discuss. The general causes of urinary incontinence are the excessive intake of alcohol and caffeine fluids. Other are obesity. Third number is older age group. Fourth number is chronic cough, chronic constipation, and the lack of exercise and muscle weakness. And when we come to the type of the incontinence, the stress incontinence causes, the reasons are different, and the urge incontinence causes are different. In stress incontinence, this is more common in the females compared to the male, and the reason behind that is the pregnancy. The second is childbirth, especially the vaginal delivery. Today's scenario, most of the girls are going on for the cesarean. This problem is less. Other is the postmenopausal, and fourth one is the female patient underwent some hysterectomy in or middle of the age. This is also because of the stress incontinence. In come to the male, the part of the stress incontinence because of some surgeries of prostate or radical prostatectomy in CA prostate patients. And when we talk about the urge incontinence, because it is a symptom complex, urge incontinence is the symptoms part of overactive bladder. So reason behind the urge incontinence is urinary tract infections, bladder stones, bladder tumors, bladder outlet obstruction, maybe because of the prostate or maybe because of stricture of the urethra. Apart from that, some medical causes like multiple sclerosis and diabetes also we change some nerves so that patient may have a urge incontinence. And apart from that, some trauma of the spinal cord. Some patient have a trauma in the spinal cord or some surgeries of the spinal cord may underwent the urge incontinence. So overall, the overall male, female, the different causes are there. Apart from that, for stress incontinence, females some different reasons are there. Male is a different reasons are there. In urge incontinence, that is not much different in the male and female, except for bladder outlet obstruction.
Thank you, Dr. I'll go back to Dr. Mitra. Dr. Mitra, pregnancy is a very kind of it's a very common experience which many women go through in their lives. Now, how does pregnancy lead to incontinence?
In the pregnancy, when the patient is pregnant, there is surge of progesterone in the body. What happens to deliver the head of the baby, all the joints must be in a relaxed state. So by this progesterone effect, all the joints in the body are in a relaxed state. And when the head in vaginal delivery, normal delivery, when the head comes out, there may be some the symphysis pubis may not be so much relaxed, and then that may cause some traction or pressure over the pelvic muscles. After the delivery is over, the muscles may remain injured or may not heal fully, and then there is incoordinates between the muscle fibers, the pelvic diaphragm and the urethral muscles, the muscles that are surrounding the urethra. Those are not fully healed, and that leads to inability to hold the urine, or in some patients also stool, also the inability to hold the urine. That leads to this urge incontinence or stress incontinence for the pregnant patients in post-pregnancy period, in the puerperal period.
Is it very common to women who go for
if there is obstructed labor? In cases of obstructed labor, it is really common. But nowadays, because most of the cases are, if there is any obstructed labor, most of the patients undergo cesarean section. So this is not so much common, but it is still common in our population, Indian population.
Dr. Roy, how is incontinence diagnosed?
So basically, incontinence, as all my fellow speakers have said, that it is multifactorial. It has got a wide range of causative factors. So the diagnosis needs to be multifold. So first of all, the main crux of the diagnosis is to take a good history from the patient. That includes a proper history as to how many times the patient voids during the daytime. That is, voids means how many times he or she passes urine during the daytime and the night time, whether he or she has to wake up multiple times during the sleep hours to void, how much urine does the patient leak, and at what times of the day, if he or she can maintain a record regarding that. And this is where the importance of a bladder diary comes into being. So we urologists, what we do is we prescribe a bladder diary for the patient, also sometimes referred to as a frequency volume chart. It is usually, the diary is basically a record that is to be maintained by the patient himself or herself, it is to be maintained for a period of a minimum of 2 to 3 days during the daytime and during the evening and night hours, as to at what times he or she experiences leakage of urine, what is the amount of water intake of the patient during the daytime and during the night time. And according to that, we can just have an idea regarding the exact times of the day where the patient leaks urine, and also have an idea about the pattern of the incontinence. That can give us an insight as to what can be the exact cause of the incontinence, so that we can plan the treatment accordingly. So here comes the importance of the bladder diary. The next important point regarding history taking is a history of any concurrent medications that the person is having, because there are certain chronic medications that can predispose to this condition, or that can aggravate this condition. For example, many elderly patients, they are chronically hypertensive. They have chronic high blood pressures for which they are taking a lot of medications for a long time. And a very common group of medications is diuretics. As you will be aware of, there are certain medications like furosemide, there are certain medications like hydrochlorothiazide or chlorthalidone, medications like that. So they basically increase the urine output themselves. So the patients who are taking those medications chronically, so we need to take a complete history regarding that, so that the patients who are having more incontinence, we can stop those medications. We can ask them to consult the cardiologist or the medicine specialist, who can stop those medications or change them over to certain other medications which do not have an effect on the urine output. So that can be done so as to know whether that medication is having a causative effect or not. Another important thing is history of smoking, history of alcohol intake of the patients. That is also very important. So after the history comes certain basic investigations, certain basic tests that we need to perform. For example, we need to perform a basic urine test for those patients, because the first of all, the thing we need to rule out is UTI, that is urinary tract infections. That may be a predisposing factor. So a urine analysis, routine analysis, and a urine culture sensitivity test should be done to rule out urinary tract infections. Some routine blood tests may be done to look for any other conditions that might predispose to this problem. A very common and readily available test is ultrasonography. Ultrasonography gives us many informations, like whether there is any problem in the kidneys, how much residual urine is there in the bladder. That can give us an insight. Suppose there is an elderly male above 60 years of age who is complaining of incontinence, and on ultrasound we find an enlarged prostate, suppose a 60 or 65 gram prostate, and a residual urine of around 200 to 300 ml. That will give us an idea that this patient needs some intervention for this prostatic enlargement, and that can relieve his symptoms. Another important investigation, suppose we find the ultrasound study is not so much suggestive, we can go for a urodynamic study. That is a very important tool nowadays in our urological practice for diagnosing any doubtful case of urinary incontinence, and it can also help to distinguish between the various types of urinary incontinence, whether it is a stress incontinence or whether it is an urge incontinence. So urodynamic study is basically a cystometric study in our terms. It is a pressure flow study of the bladder, in which it has two phases. There is a filling phase and there is the voiding phase. In the filling phase, we artificially fill the patient's bladder with water or saline till the patient develops an increased the maximum sensation to pass the urine, till he feels the pain in the bladder. We fill the bladder with water, and when the patient has that maximum sensation, we stop the filling, and then comes the voiding phase, in which we ask the patient to pass the urine as much as he can. And there is a machine along with that, there is a setup along with that, and there's a software in which the pattern of filling and the pattern of voiding is recorded. And along with that, during the filling phase and the voiding phase, we record certain pressures. That is the pressure inside the bladder, the pressure inside the abdomen, and the pressure inside the rectum. These three things are recorded, and as per the software and as per certain calculations, we find out whether there is any abnormality in the bladder muscle which is leading to this problem, or whether there is any abnormality in the outlet, that is the bladder and urethral junction. Is there any problem in the outlet that is leading to this problem, or whether the problem is inside the bladder itself? So there are certain other investigations. If required, we can go for a cystoscopy. There's you might have heard of a term, minimally invasive procedure in our urological practice, which is known as cystoscopy. That gives us many relevant information regarding this problem. So these are, in short, the gist of the investigations.
Thank you, Doctor. I'll come down to Dr. Chaudhary now. Dr. Chaudhary, can you tell us what are the treatment options for urinary incontinence?
As we have been already aware that it's a multifactorial problem. So we have to address it starting from the history. We should try to diagnose what is the base root cause for this. So it might be a medical problem, or it might be a problem with the sphincter. So we have to, from the history, we have to know whether the patient is having other comorbidities or not, like diabetes, neurological problems like Parkinsonism, and other neurodeficits. A patient having maybe a stroke in the earlier years, they may be having this background medical problems. So this patients has to be managed medically. The diabetes has to be controlled. The neurological problem, Parkinsonism, has to be treated with appropriate drugs and all. Now, if those things have been ruled out, if it's a basic problem with the, we have to find out whether it's which sort of incontinence it is, where it fits, whether it's an urge incontinence, whether it's an stress incontinence, whether it's an overflow incontinence, or whether it's a true incontinence. So the treatments are totally different. Like If it's an urge incontinence or a stress incontinence, we tend to calm down the bladder so that it doesn't void. Again, in an overflow incontinence, it's basically the bladder is full. It's a full vessel and it's overflowing from that. So in that case, if we try to calm down the bladder, it will further aggravate the situation. So in that case, we have to try to empty the blood. So thinking of the first scenario where there is an overactive bladder, there are certain medications. First, we try to advise the patient lifestyle modification, like from the, as mentioned by the panelists earlier, that we ask for a bladder diary. So from that, we can know whether the patient is polydipsic. That means he is drinking a lot of water or not. Often we see that people come with an history that he is drinking 6 to 7 liters of water per day, even more, thinking that that helps to flush out the kidney, that good for health. But on the contrary, basically that overloads your kidney and there is a fluid overload in the body and they tend to pass more urine and therefore their problem with incontinence and all increases. So we have to know whether the fluid intake is over or not, and we have to restrict the fluid intake in this patient. Patients who are having particularly nocturnal incontinence, so where they have something called a nocturnal polyuria. That means they tend to produce more urine in the night times, or they may be having a leg swelling, which is leading to a nocturnal polyuria. So, so in these patients, we tend to treat those. And those patients who are incontinent, some post-surgery maybe, like TURP or a radical prostatectomy as mentioned, they might be treated with certain exercises like Kegel exercises, even the medications like there are anti-muscarinics, there are beta-3 agonists. These medicines are tried. And if they're refractory to those, then artificial sphincter comes into play. So there are certain surgeries where you can put an artificial sphincter and you can address incontinence.
Till the Bob is joined, Dr. Pushkar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can discuss basically the stress incontinence part. The stress incontinence part, we should treat the, as you said, as a lifestyle changes first. Second, we give the pelvic floor exercise that we call as Kegel exercise. Third number, we can start the medication like antidepressant. And fourth number, lastly, we give the some patient the surgery. So
Yeah.
which patient you want to go for surgery in a stress incontinence?
The surgery is basically the last resort. So we try all the other available things before embarking for surgery. Like, as I mentioned earlier, we will try medications, and even generally surgery is required in certain cases, generally post-surgery, like a post-TURP patient or a post-radical prostatectomy patient.
Yeah.
So we wait for almost a year with exercises, with medications, and still if they are incontinent and there is no sign of improvement, then we bring in the surgeries. So it might be a sling surgery or it might be putting some artificial sphincters. The reason behind delaying the surgeries, often patients improve with time. So almost 80 to 90% of patients who post surgery who become incontinent, they tend to improve and they can manage without a surgery. Surgery has their own advantages as well as disadvantages. Advantages being they become incontinent immediately, but sometimes they are hypercontinent. That means they are unable to void urine even with the sphincter. There is certain, sometimes there is an erosion of the sphincters, or you might have to remove the sphincter after putting it in after a few years or maybe within months. The sphincter, since it's an artificial thing which is in your body, that might get infected, that might malfunction. So these problems are there, and it's pretty costly as well. A sphincter in Indian currency is almost 4.5 lakhs. So very few can afford that. Then there are autologous things which we can use. We can use certain body parts like our certain fascia and all, which can be used to as a sling, which are generally cheap. And this also again we do when it's a refractory case, like patient who after TURP, if they are not improving after 1 year and totally incontinent, that means he's unable to hold any urine, he's not able to go to the toilet to void, he's continuously leaking. So we consider them, but we generally wait for 1 year and see if there is no improvement, then we go for these surgeries.
And what are the indications in females for the operation? These are the male, the post surgery and the post operation.
Female again is the same, like they might be having an obstetric, it might be an obstetric cause or a gynecological cause. So generally it's an obstetric cause. So it might be, see, incontinence doesn't only mean a sphincter. Any leak within the, from the urinary bladder or the ureter will make the patient incontinent. That will, they will keep on losing urine from their vagina, or they will be wet. So these patients where there is a definite cause can be made out, like maybe a VVF, vesicovaginal fistula, or an ureterovaginal fistula. We go for surgical intervention. In some cases, maybe within 3 to 4 weeks, and in VVF, we generally wait for 3 months and then go for surgery. Patients who developed a weak sphincter, there is a hammock, the hammock which holds the urinary bladder, they become weak often with obstructed labors and prolonged labors, or multipara. Those who have given to multiple childbirth, their pelvic floor muscles become weak, so they are unable to hold the bladder to its in its position. And in females, basically the urethra, since it's very small compared to a male urethra, and the sphincteric mechanism is also different from that of male urethra. So what happens is the intra-abdominal part of the urethra, that basically the longer it is, the more continent there. So when their hammock becomes loose and that sphincteric part basically comes down, so there is a the sphincter becomes weak. So then we do certain surgeries to keep that sphincter in position. We try to pull it up again and tighten its the strings of the hammock, rather I would say. And in that way, we make the intra abdominal urethra, we increase the length. In those cases, we don't need an expensive sphincter or an expensive artificial sphincter. And these surgeries often do marvels. So they become continent and they have a very good result.
Okay. Bob has joined. Hello. Bob has joined. No. Yeah. Bob, you are not audible.
Not clearly, sir.
Not not clearly.
We can hear you.
There is a bit of disturbance, sir.
But anyway, my next question would be to Dr. Ghosh. What happens if incontinence is not treated?
I cannot make up your question. Can you please repeat the question once again?
What are the problems if incontinence is not treated? What are the problem will come to the patient, sir? This is the question of Bob.
If it is not treated, then what happens?
So an untreated incontinence may lead to a lot of problems, some physical, some psychological, some social. So firstly, physical problems are due to, since the urine is constantly leaking out, so that the private parts of both male and female, that pick and also the inner side of the thighs, they are kept moist all the time. So that leads to certain skin problems like excoriation. There may be some erosions, sores, etc. So that lead to secondary infections in the skin, different kinds of infections and sepsis. And this is particularly true for patients who are elderly, patients who have some comorbidities like diabetes or some other immunocompromised state. So that may lead to a big problem for them. The other main problem is a psychological impact on the patient, because he's constantly, urine is constantly leaking out and his dress is constantly getting wet due to the leaking urine, and he smells bad. So he get some kind of socially isolated. He cannot attend to the family functions. He cannot go out freely as he want. So that lead to a social stigma for the patient as well. And also, in case of other kind of incontinence like overflow incontinence, if that was left untreated for a long time, due to this overfilling of the bladder, that overfilling of bladder also keeps pressure on his kidneys. So his kidneys gradually swell up. We call it bilateral hydronephrosis. And ultimately, the kidney function gradually decreases. So patient may end up in having a chronic renal failure or lifetime dialysis, or the patient with renal transplant if that overflow incontinent is not get treated in proper time. Also, these patients need to certain, apart from the psychological, social, and physical problems, this also gives the patient some economical disadvantage to the patients, because the patient lose their professions, particularly he has to move out frequently outside his home for doing his job. He has to buy the absorbent pads and other things to keep him dry, him or her dry for a long time. So that lead to some economical disadvantage to the patients also.
Okay. Can you hear me now,
Yeah,
Dr.
yeah.
Vijay?
Yeah, I'm audible. Yeah.
Dr. Vijay, can you tell us how does one manage incontinence if somebody has this problem?
If the patient have an incontinence, so first of all, we should say if it is a type, which type of the incontinence is there. There is stress incontinence or urge incontinence. So the management of the both are totally different. So by as Dr. Sayak Rai explained how we diagnose the incontinence and how to classify the incontinence. If the patient have a stress incontinence, first of all, we should go for some lifestyle changes according to her is or her bladder diary. What are the triggering factors? We should remove them. They like coffee ingestion or a alcohol intake. Apart from some spicy foods, if if or she or he is taking spicy foods, so we should tell them to avoid them. Apart from that, they should control their weight. If they are obese, they should reduce their weight and take a healthy food. And other thing is avoid the constipation. And apart from that, they should treat their medical conditions if they have some. After that, in stress incontinence, we are giving a pelvic floor muscle exercise that we call Kegel exercise. And after that, even that some patient have some problem, we can start some medication. That is antidepressant drug for the stress incontinence. And even that patient is not improving, then some specific indication in some patients, as explained by the Dr. Pushkar, for the indication of the surgeries in the male and the females in the stress incontinence, we can go for that. Now we come to the urge incontinence. So we see there are also some lifestyle changes, as I've told in the stress incontinence. Apart from that, we should give the bladder training in the urge incontinence. What is the bladder training? We are divided into two parts. One, you should fix your toilet when you will go for the toilet every 1 hourly or 2 hourly, and slowly this time will be increased in days to months. Second thing is the patient have a urge to void, so he try to postpone this urge for some time, like that 1 minute, 2 minutes, or 10 minutes, and this urge postpone time is increased slowly. Then patient himself by biofeedback mechanism, he can control his urge incontinence. Apart from that, the Kegel exercise still is very good for the urge incontinence, also the stress incontinence, and a mixed type of incontinence. And lastly, we are give some medications. There are lots of medications available. All medications have some side effects. Some medications are less side effects. In which the most commonly we use drug is anticholinergic. These anticholinergic drugs control the urine, but it has some side effects. Apart from some drugs that come mirabegron that have a less side effect as compared to the antimuscarinic. But in some patients who are because these patients, the incontinence patients, are mostly the elderly patients. They have other comorbidities like hypertensive and hypothyroidism and different problems. In that patient, we should give the mirabegron with precautions. Apart from that, we can give the alpha blocker. Even that the patient is not controlled his urge incontinence. In that situation, we can go for some surgeries or some intra bladder injection like Botox injection, but the indication of nowadays is very rare. because we have a lots of medications and most advanced of the medication we have. According to that, we can treat them better. Apart from that, we can also be put some nerve stimulators that stimulate the sacral nerves that relax the bladder, and they also give the support to the pelvic muscles. So these are the treatment of for the stress incontinence or urge incontinence is totally different. First, we should diagnose first which type of incontinence is there: stress incontinence, urge incontinence, or mixed type. That is the most common. And other rare incontinence have like that some functional incontinence or a total leakage of urine. These cases we require the surgery. Total leakage, as explained by Dr. Pushkar Sham Chaudhary, the vesicovaginal fistula or ureterovaginal fistulas. In these cases, we require the surgery.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Vijay. Dr. Mitra, are there any products available which can help with incontinence patients?
In males, we can use for who can't use the artificial sphincter because of its high cost. We can use penile clamps or we can use adult diapers. What are the main things you want to ask?
I mean, are there any products which can help incontinence patient? I mean, I don't know, it could be diapers or something.
Other than medication.
Other than medications, yeah.
Medication and devices.
We can use a penile clamp. The waste of it is using an artificial sphincter, but as the panelist told, it's a very high cost, about 4.5 lakhs device costs, and total surgery costs nearly 6 to 6.5 lakhs. So many patients can't use it. So in those cases, we can use a penile clamp. It's just a clip-like device so that you can use it when you can go outside, so it will not void. Also, adult diapers are there, and for these are the main. And also for who has skin problems, they can use skin emollients or antifungal agents to reduce the skin problems. These are the devices. Nothing else is.
In fact, for treatment of urinary incontinence, how expensive is it for a general, average patient? Is it very expensive to have the treatment?
No, as per treatment, the main thing is to be for medications. The main thing is to be compliant, because most of the patients they don't take the drugs, especially the anticholinergics, due to their side effects, and rarely due to their cost. Also, mirabegron is a second-line drug that we can use, but mirabegron also costs a bit. But the surgery part is you can, if you differentiate between a stress incontinence and the urge incontinence, the things are separate. For stress incontinence, we can use transobturator tapes or meshes in females. Those are not so much cost, and total surgery may take about, in Indian currency, in small centers can take only 25 to 30,000 rupees. But for artificial sphincters, those are absolutely required in cases with radical prostatectomy and QRP after 6 months to 1 year of not getting improved. Then those costs are a lot.
Okay. Thank you, Doctor. Dr. Roy, could you please tell us, is this urinary incontinence a natural process? I mean, for as we age, is it that in the urinary incontinence takes place naturally, or is it something which is not out of the ordinary?
So yeah, so basically, there has been a saying that one of the predisposing factors for urinary incontinence is advancing age. That there is a notion that as the age advances, urinary incontinence, the chance of urinary incontinence increases, because we can correlate this thing to the fact that as the age of person advances, all the muscles get weaker, the body fat increases, and the fat is to muscle ratio increases in most of the persons. But it is not a universal phenomenon that it it will always occur with increasing age. It can occur in any age group. It can occur in the young, it can occur in the old, it can occur in the middle-aged persons as well. And as I already said, that sex predilection is a theoretical term more often than not. The theoretical term is that it occurs more in females, but it is not that it is a very rare phenomenon in males as well. It can occur in many male patients as well. So basically, depending upon the type of incontinence, we have seen that the progression of the incontinence is the types is different with each type. So basically, if it is urge incontinence, the most important cause being that of overactive bladder, as my panelists have already said. Overactive bladder, basically it happens very slowly over time. It progresses very slowly over time. It happens in the younger age group and slowly progresses over time. And as regards stress incontinence, it has a more sudden onset. I beg your pardon. It occurs in the more older age group of patients rather than the younger age group. And and basically stress incontinence, as the panelists have already said, it can happen after surgical cause, after any procedure as well, and it progresses with time unless treated. Overflow incontinence, again, as we have already discussed, because of in elderly males with enlarged prostate with chronic bladder outlet obstruction, that leads to overflow incontinence, and it worsens as the obstruction increases unless it is treated promptly. And as regards functional incontinence, there is a term known as functional incontinence. Basically, it is an entity in which, in old chronically debilitated or frail individuals who have normal bladder sensation and normal bladder muscle control, but they cannot go to the toilet at appropriate times to pass urine because of some risk of falls or certain neurological conditions or certain mental abnormal conditions. They have a functional incontinence. That is referred to as a functional incontinence. That is more psychological rather than organic. That can happen in the older, frail age group of patients. And of course, there is a term known as gross total incontinence, which can happen after surgery or after spinal cord injury. That patient is incontinent all the time. It leaks all the time. So that needs to be treated unless and until, and it may not respond to treatment as well in certain cases. So it is a chronic condition. So this is how the various types of incontinence can dictate the way it progresses, and whether it is not the fact that, as you to answer your question, it is not the fact that it is only related to age. It is related to many other factors as well.
Dr. Ghosh, is there other things which one can do to kind of avoid having this problem? Maybe some exercise or yoga or pranayam?
Fortunately, most of the incontinence, at least at the beginning, they are very mild, do not alter the day-to-day activity to major extent. So the initial treatment is always some changes in the lifestyle. For example, some changes in the food habit can have a positive impact on management of incontinence in all kinds of incontinence, both stress and urge incontinence. For example, the drinks like tea, coffee, caffeine-containing substances, aerated drinks, they have shown that they to increase the both the stress and urge incontinence. So avoidance of these drinks as much as possible can have a positive impact in the management of incontinence. Similarly, exercises have a positive impact because, as discussed by the other speakers, one of the cause of incontinence, especially stress incontinence, is the weakness of the pelvic floor muscles, which holds the bladder, the urethra, and everything. So, due to various causes, like in women, the pregnancy, childbirth, and after menopausal, the hormonal changes, these muscles get weak. So, there are certain exercises. For example, the famous Kegels exercise, which is named after the famous gynecologist Dr. Arnold Kegel, which helps to strengthen the muscles which prevent this urine leakage. So this is a very simple kind of exercise, and there are a lot of educational videos available in social media like YouTube. Anybody can see them and reproduce them easily at their home. And believe me, these are very effective means to get control of the symptoms without any medication, without any surgery, when the symptoms are mild.
Dr. Vijay, people who have this problem, they sometimes have this fear that if they drink, their normal intake of water, and if they're going out, they kind of then they become hesitant because it might cause them inconvenience while they're traveling or commuting. As a result, many of them also might get dehydrated. So how does one tackle such a problem like this?
These are the actually a lifestyle changes done by patient himself. When patient is going outside, they are taking the less drink of water. Wherever they will go, they want to always be watch where is the nearest toilet. These are the fear patients have. But if the patient not drinking the water properly, they may be dehydrated. They may have some other problem. So for that, they always seek a consult a doctor, because urinary incontinence today's scenario is totally treatable condition. So they should seek a advice to the doctor. What is his problem? How they will change their lifestyle changes or some exercises so that their urinary incontinence will be improved. Or some patients we can advise the medications also. So more than 90% of the patients will be cured by this effort. But important thing is they should not shy about their problem. They should consult a urologist or a nearby doctor.
Okay. Dr. Chaudhary, in case when does one go for surgery? In case of an incontinence problem, I mean, there are various types of incontinence, I understand. But when does one have to go for a surgery? I think your audio is just put on your audio.
Surgery is the last resort to treat incontinence. We should try all possible things before that, like lifestyle modifications, dietary restrictions, try to lose weight, try medications, and even if it's refractory, there are two conditions particularly which need surgery, which is true incontinence. True incontinence means patient is continuously leaking. It might be congenital due to some birth defect, or it might be following some obstetric or some surgical causes. In females, it's associated with obstructed labors and all, or some gynecological surgeries where they develop a communication between the urinary bladder and the vagina. So urine keeps on leaking from them. So these are not going to improve with any sort of medications. So they need surgery, like a vesicovaginal fistula, ureterovaginal fistula, or any congenital problems. Other patients, like those who have an overactive bladder, they generally don't need any surgery, because overactive bladder leading to incontinence, they generally don't improve with surgery. Rather, there might be certain problems of undergoing surgery. So they basically are treated with medications. There are some surgical interventions, like in a very refractory case where overactivity is not decreasing medicines, then you can try neuromodulation. That is, when the this spinal cord, some modulation is done, which is a sort of a surgery through which the overactivity can be reduced. Or we can do a cystoscopy and put botulinum toxin within the bladder, which can lead to decrease in the overactivity. Stress urinary incontinence, if not treated, if not improving with medications or exercise, they can be treated with surgeries, like using slings or transobturator tapes or some synthetic tapes, which gives remarkably good results, and they are very not very costly as well. And in certain cases, like post prostate surgery, like radical prostatectomy or TURP, if the patient is incontinent and not improving with medications, with exercises, with Faradic stimulations over 6 months to 1 year, we generally wait for 1 year. If they are not improving, then we go for artificial sphincter implantation.
Thank you, Dr. Chaudhary. We are coming to close of our session because the time also is running out. My last question would be to Dr. Mitra. Dr. Mitra, if you can also tell us, in case of a problem like this, what does simple thing like walking, swimming, does it help? And another question I would want to know from you is the standard medicine which you use for treating urinary incontinence. Do they have much side effects?
Yeah, walking, swimming, this if it is not strenuous, if it's light walking or just a bit of swimming, just lying down in a swimming pool, that is okay. But in patients who are having stress incontinence, if that causes much of abdominal pressure, increase in abdominal pressure, that may lead to increase in symptoms of the stress incontinence. So this should not be done in cases of stress incontinence. In cases of OAB, overactive bladder, light walking is absolutely necessary because that may increase the tonicity of the abdominal muscles and the pelvic muscles also, and also to do regularly the Kegel exercise, the pelvic floor muscle training. Those are the most important to increase the. We do not ask the patient to increase the intra-abdominal pressure by doing heavy exercises. For the second part, the drugs that we use generally for these overactive symptoms are mainly anticholinergics. Those are having common side effects like dryness of mouth, constipation. There may be some palpitation in patients who are having open angle, closed angle glaucoma. That may increase the symptoms of glaucoma. There may be dimness of vision and may watering from the eyes. These are the common side effects. In those patients who are non-compliant with these anticholinergics, we generally go for mirabegron, which is a beta-3 agonist drug, which is available just for 3 to 4 years in Indian market. Those generally do not have those types of side effects, but those drugs has also to be used cautiously in patients who are having liver dysfunction or renal dysfunction. These are the common side effects of the drugs.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mitra. And thank you all the doctors today. Thank you for taking out a precious time and coming and joining us. I hope our audience today, they have gained much and have understood very common, I won't say very common, but it's quite a common problem with many of the people in our society. This week has given us this opportunity to pick up a topic like this, and I hope we will have some useful, knowledge and wisdom to take on the problem like this. Thank you very much, and thank you MSN Lab also for helping us organize a session like this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Times of India and MSN, to give us the opportunity for this wonderful discussion. That's very helpful for our patients and the general public. And this is because of World Continence Week. So they should leave their shy and should contact with their doctor if they have any type of urine leak. Thank you, Times of India and MSN.